Right. So, as I said before, a tree or metal can be out of shape, not in alignment or in its original form. But what about you and I? Sometimes our situation or circumstances challenges us and shake us up. But though we are bent, we are not broken. So the idea of this sermonette came from my experience at camp 2 weeks ago. I had brought a new tent and I had not used it before. The one that I wanted is so that I could stand in it. I am 5'2" or 3", somewhere there. But I did not want to spend 7 days anchoring down. So I ordered one, but when it came, it was smaller than advertised. The measurement just did not add up. Forecast for Hungary said that there was going to be sun throughout, with the exception of thunderstorms for probably a day or two. Ruth, go ahead. Even though the tents are secure, if you notice the wind is having a go at those, especially mine, which is very thin. But as you can see, they are secured. These are stronger 10 poles. Right, and if you notice, I'm not like the children, proper paparazzi, but you get the message. So, I got help to pitch the tent. It was a 6-man tent, so it was hard for me to do it by myself. There's a bit of gap at the bottom, if you notice, but I was not extremely worried. Wednesday morning came and there was some high wind. I called for help again as I watched the tent bend to the ground and bounce back. The guy ropes, so that's those cords that you see to the side, they were adjusted and more pegs put into the ground. Let me tell you, people, I tell you, I believe in prayer, you know. My prayer was, Lord, do not let me be embarrassed. I said, I'm your child. Do not let me be embarrassed by this tent blowing away. The small brackets, the picture didn't open, but the small brackets at the of the guy rope broke, but they still stayed in the ground, so we had to adjust it, right? There's somebody's tent, I think it was the one in front of me. It ended up in the bushes behind us. And here am I sitting and I look and I don't see my tent, and I was like, wow, it is gone. I looked again and I said, no, Stephen is still standing, but somebody's tent. Because when I looked, I said, no, I didn't carry one of the pump up material, and I saw that. So the bed, the tent is there, and the bed is there on the other lady's, behind the other lady's tent. And I was thinking, that is not good. But due to the force of the wind, some people had to actually flatten their tents. So in the picture, you saw a blue tent and you saw a white tent. They actually flattened their tent. But look at little me. I have no time to flatten another tent and to build it up back in the night. And the nights were cold. So I said, you know what? It is going to stay there and dance. There's one thing I know. There is a big shed, the headquarters, that I could sleep in. All I needed to do was to draw two pillows and get my thing. So I wasn't worried. I was more worried to be embarrassed that I couldn't pitch a tent than the tent flying away. But that's where pride comes in. I was not flooded out or the tent broken, but I observed that the tents were bending in different directions over the few days. As more volunteers came and set up, then the direct onslaught of the wind was less. At the end of camp, I was taking down the tent and I had to smile. These poles were firmly secured in the ground. So despite my anxiety, it firmly held. And I just said, thank God. Now, you have to understand, if you are weak, you cannot camp. And that's something I really want to tell my pathfinders, that when you put down that tent, you have to be secure. They have to be secured. But also, at the same time, other things, other outside influences might come in over which you have no control. In life, there are or will be circumstances that will bend you. They will rock the very foundation on which you stand or base your beliefs. Situation with unruly children, divorce, unmet life desires, jobs, health issues, untimely deaths of loved ones, loss of jobs, and the list continues. These situations can bend you and will bend you. I have an adopted brother, and someone stabbed him when he was in high school. And it pained me. I had just become a junior nurse, and it pained me. And because of who our father was, he was calm, peaceful. He was the headmaster of the primary school I attended. So we were not a family who fight. You know, some children always in fight. And Oral died because he was trying to part a fight. So then I learned, leave people and their story alone. But it hurt. And then, as I said, these situations bend you. And then you look at children and wonder, how can a child be this cruel to another one? So these situations, as I said, these are the ones that bend you sometime. But let me tell you something, there's a God who offers us hope. We're going to look briefly at some Bible characters and see how they cope during their bending or stormy encounters. Let us look at Genesis 16, verses 6 to 13. So this is the story of Hagar, the maid, and she became the concubine for Abram. She was elevated to an esteemed position by his wife, Sarah, because she was the maid, and she got pregnant. Remember, if the backdrop of the story is that Sarah could not become pregnant, and so she gave her maid to Abraham. And I can just imagine how Hagar taunted Sarah. But, you know, life is funny. This same lady who you could say, and probably we could get into the semantics of where trust in God came in and all of that. But my point, I just want to show you when you're bent, what the outcome can be. So in the taunt and in our Jamaican parlance, she might say, well, you wear the ring, but I have the pitney. And there's other version to it which cannot be said on here, right? So she was taunted in her house. And Sarah got frustrated. She got upset. And I think at some point Sarah must have said to herself, but what was I thinking? You know, I want you to help me out, but now you become a thorn in my flesh. And so she was banished. After she was banished, what happened? She became a wanderer. She became an asylum seeker. It's the word that is being branded about today. There was no bed, there were no tasty food, there was no fancy clothes. And remember now, Abram was a wealthy man. As a maid, you had a privileged position because you were maid to the wife, right? So you had a privileged position. And I'm thinking, no, she's a wanderer in the desert. She's in wilderness. All right, let me use the foods that I'm used to. There is no apple juice. There's no comforter. There's no dates. You're looking at the sky and thinking, what? There's a proper word for drunkard, but at this minute, allow me to say drunkard. There's a drunkard going around like that, thinking, when am I going to dry? There's a raven. Right, thank you very much. Right? But guess what? In that wilderness position, God did not leave her. Let us look at verses 11 to 13. And it says, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child. Let me go a bit further. Let me go to verse 7. So she's disbanded now, and in verse 7, the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the mountain in the way to shore. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord had heard thy affliction. And he said, and he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And and she called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, thou God seest me. For she said, have I also here looked for him that saith me. In every situation you're in, know that God is there. And I can only say thank you. Every situation. If you look at Psalm 121, verse 8, the Lord said that he will be with you. Huh? He said, he will be with you. The angel spoke to Hagar, and she listened and obeyed the instruction. Now, this is where most people have problem. We listen, but we don't obey. In the bent state of mind, in verse 13, she called on the name of the Lord, thou God seest me, El Roi. Are you in a wilderness and think God is not seeing or hearing you? Are you trusting and believing in God for a miracle? Look at Hagar's outcome. Her son Ishmael was the forefather of the Arabs. Is there anything too hard for the Lord to do? Just think. Genesis 18, verse 14. States, is there anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Again, fulfillment. In Jeremiah 32, verse 17, it's another promise. So though you and I are going through bent situation, let us remember that there is God who will see us. Then we're going to look at our favorite friend, Job. He lost everything. In Job 30, he describes his humiliation. And let us look at Job 30. The backdrop is that, Satan visited, and the Lord wanted to show that they're still faithful people. So on the face of the earth, here is Job. In this one, it describes his humiliation. In verse 10 to 14, it tells us how he was stigmatized and ostracized. They made song about him. Probably if it was now, he would have been on TikTok, Facebook, and FaceTime, and the whole of the different times. But Job had something that we all need. Job had hope. In chapter 31, verse 35, it says, "Oh, that one would hear me. Behold, my desire is that the Almighty would answer me, and that mine adversary had written a book." So as I said, all of this was happening to Job, and he felt it. He was bent. You could say it was broken, but he went on. Then his friends all accused him of disobeying God. Yet Job knew deep within it was not so. And we all have those friends. Sometimes they are not empathetic or sympathetic with our pains. They become expert on your situation and is willing to give you information whether or not solicited. Job confessed his lack of understanding because yes, sometimes we don't understand. Often we don't understand why things are happening. In Job 42, verses 1 to 6, Job confesses that he lacks understanding. He has a dialogue with the Lord and he says, Lord, I'm not understanding why all of this. In verse 7 to 11, the Lord spoke to Job, and there was a resolution and deliverance for Job and his friends. So guess what? We talked about unity this morning, but even when your friends sometimes say things, you still have to pray for them. Because here Job prayed, right? And in verse 7 it says, "And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz, the Temanite, My wrath is kindled against thee and against thy two friends, for ye have not spoken of me the things that is right, as my servant Job hath." So people, be careful what you say. It is always a good thing to be careful what you say. Then when we looked at Job 42 again, verse 12, restoration to Job. His latter days was better than his early days. It's a situation where I couldn't write it in patois, so I had to write it in English. Let nobody spoil your joy. Yes, you're bent, you're going through the situation, but know that restoration will come. Job was in the road of hard knock, but hope reigns eternally in his heart. Hold on, my friends. The darkest hour is before dawn. Let us look also at Jonah. Jonah, who desired to flee from God. God sent him to Nineveh to warn, but he took the ship to Tarshish, which is two different places there. Um, Tarshish is on the other side of the world, right? So when you are sent on your mission, sometimes you will not understand why God sent you on the mission. But be careful because you cannot hide anywhere. God is everywhere. Let us look at Jonah 1, verse 17 rather. In this, and I think I just read it, where it says, it took the ship over to Tarshish, and come let us, and they said, everyone to us, cast, oh, I'm sort of going fast forward. So
You
let me
still
go
don't
back.
know? Because I don't mind. I don't remember hearing you say good.
It was in the fish's belly that Jonah found salvation and the Lord. He prayed and learned and was rescued. All right, so look at verse 17. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. And as I heard a pastor said that there are people who do not believe this situation happened, but the Lord in Matthew did tell his disciple, just as Jonah was in the fish's belly, so too would he be. So it's an actual situation that has happened. Like Jonah, you'll have to learn to call on God. And I do not mean the prayer that said, dear God, I am tired. You have to tell God, say, look, I am tired in capital letter. Let us move now. And we want to break out. Remember now, well, how many of us have scaled a fish? You know that to scale the fish, the inside of the fish is not nice, right? And for that reason, I have a friend who will not scale fish, so I stopped buying those fish to be scaled, right? It has to be scaled and cleaned by someone else. And it is there in that gummy situation, that darkness, because I don't think any light was going down there that much, except when he swallowed some water, but I don't think there was plenty of water there. And guess what? He got vomited out. And you and I know that vomit is not anything good, you know, unless there's a foreign body and you really want it to come out. So you get some charcoal and it does its work. But in that dark situation where Jonah got his breakthrough. Look at Jonah 2 verses 1 to 10. And we'll just go through that briefly. No, I don't like darkness. I'll sleep in dark, and there are times when the room has to be dark. But you can imagine for 3 days and 3 nights, you're in somewhere. It was not a pretty situation. Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly, and said, I cry by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord. And he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice. For thou hast cast me into the deep, in the midst of the sea, and the floods compass me about. All thy billows and thy waves pass over me. Then I said, I am cast out of thy sight, yet I will look again towards the holy temple. When you are called, yes, most of us don't know what our gifts are. I'm still trying to find mine, right? But when the Lord calls you to do something, we will argue. We say, me, Lord, how dare you ask me to be Sabbath school? But yet when I got baptized, I raised my hand and I said, I will do everything that the church asked me to do. Go back through your baptism vow again and see. I'm not telling any lie. Right? So, Jonah was restored. I want us to remember that there is no situation, and I'm talking to myself too, that you will not get a breakthrough from. In verse 7, it says, "When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came in unto thee, into thine holy temple, that they observe lying, vanities forsake their own mercy, but I will sacrifice unto thee with a voice of thanksgiving. I will pay that I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord." Now, sometimes it is this bent situation that brings us closer to God. For most people, this is the time when we tend to draw one foot out of church and we distance ourselves from others. But I want you to know that that is the time when you need to draw close to God. Then we're going to go over to the New Testament, and we are going to look at the woman with the issue of blood. She was living with this condition for 12 years. I can only imagine. She was financially burdened. She was physically outcast, stigmatized, lonely. Everything is gone except hope. And that's beautiful. When you have hope, you really do have everything. It is the hope that is within her propels her to reach out just one more time. And this was not a merely touching of Jesus' garment. This was a holding. I need help now, right? So that is what she did. But note at this stage that there's always somebody to deny you your desire to seek God or to improve your situation. You could say, well, this is what I want to accomplish. I don't know exactly how, but I have plan A and plan B. And I'm going through it. But there has to be somebody, oh, no, it can't. Or you're not qualified. Who gives them the right to say that? But look what happened. This unnamed woman did not even tell her friends. Mark you, she didn't have any. She was all by herself. There was no Facebook for her to post and say, well, snap, I am going to touch Jesus's hem of garment at 12 o'clock. Nope. There was no WhatsApp message to send. Aislinn, do you think I should touch Jesus's clothes? No. There was no TikTok by the riverside to say, well, Jesus is here and there's a crowd, so get into the party. Nothing. Silently ostracized. This woman went and she pulled Jesus's coat. When you're in your bent wilderness, only God can help. And as the psalmist say, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord. Look at her. When she touched Jesus, she was exposed. In verse 47, it says, verse 47 of Luke 8, it says, she was bare before the Lord. And in our Jamaican saying, we would say, our business gone abroad. Because she now because of Peter, but Jesus, somebody touch you. We are in a crowd. Somebody must touch you. But this lady was left exposed. The crowd parted, and she was right before Jesus, empty, bent. And then she said to Jesus, this is my condition. But I want to tell you how loving Jesus is. Look at verse 48. Be of good comfort. Thy faith had made thee whole. Go in peace. What more could this lady ask for? Words of affirmation, words of peace and comfort in the sweetest loving voice. They say a Jamaican man could sell you Finland or Iceland, and you will believe them. This is nowhere close to their sweet mouth. This is Jesus bringing you peace and comfort, right? So when you and I face these challenges, we need to find a way to resolve our situation. I mentioned my last sermon that prayer and fasting, and I will not give up. Prayer and fasting is a way to get things done. As I said, not into people's business, but pray for a closer relationship with Christ. Seek help where necessary. Unlike me, who have been told, you really need to get, and I said, look, at my age, they can't help what I have, so let's move right along. And my daughter does not like when I say that, but let's move right along, because say, some people don't understand my culture, they don't understand my upbringing, so, but that's a whole different story. Spend some quiet time with God. God stills the storm to a whisper and turned the desert into pools of water. I don't know about anybody else, but my favorite thing, and even though I don't swim, I paddle, is that I love to go to the beach. You go to the beach, sit and just look at the ocean. Well, depending on where you live. I live a couple meters from the sea. But you go there, sit, get a comfortable stone or just sit on the sand and just look out, watch the waves and see how that brings you joy, how it calms your spirit. So the Creator has made all of these for you. The one to whom we pray brings hope out of despair and beauty out of ruin. Your spirit may be craving quiet, but even more so, it may be yearning to hear the voice of God. Find room for silence in your life so you'll never miss God's gentle whisper. When you're being bent, sometimes because of the situation and the brain is going faster than the heart is beating, you don't take time out. You need to take time out to get this. Confidence is not what all of us have. But today, I want you to know and I want you to believe and purpose in your heart that God is in control. Even though our situation bends us, we're confident that with God, all things are possible and we will not be broken. Never let the situation break you. Stand firm because this too will pass. Ellen White, in her book, Desire of Ages, says, to every sincere prayer, I'm just trying to find that. Right. He answers, here am I. He uplift the distressed and the downtrodden. In all our afflictions, he is afflicted, and in every temptation, and in every trial, the angel of the presence is near to deliver. The prayer of the sincere heart offered in faith will be heard in heaven. It may not be grammatically correct, but if the heart is in it, it will ascend to the sanctuary where Jesus ministers, and he will present to the Father without one awkward stammering, with graceful and perfect through his merit, for his righteousness refine and ennobles it and makes it acceptable to the Father. So yes, the situation is hard, We are bent, and we refuse to be broken. So today, what I want us to remember, don't give up on God. This too shall pass. Now unto him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. Unto him be glory in the church by Christ Jesus throughout all ages, world without end. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Elder Iceland, for that timely message. The song that we're going to sing now is Master, the Tempest is Raging. Check.
It's not in the new.
It's not in the new one.
No, it's not in the new.
No,
It's in
no.
the old one.
Yeah. Where is it?
Master, the tempest is raging, the billows are tossing high, the sky is o'ershadowed with